What are you doing in here? How'd you get in? You always leave your window unlocked. I just crawled in. Listen, I gotta tell you
already know because I already watched your video.
okay?
I wanted to play it.
Sure. What is it?
I didn't finish the whole video, so
Did you cheat on me? No, no.
let's go.
Oh man, I can't believe I actually did this.
Enjoy the music in the
What did you do? I
background.
just killed somebody. What? Is this a joke? Nope. It's real. I just snuck up on some random guy and knocked him out. Then I strangled him and threw him in the river. Isn't that crazy? Tell me you're making this up. I'm not dating a murderer. If you did this, I'm snitching and calling the cops. No. Don't do that. Then I'll have to kill you too, bitch. Okay, I won't say anything. You're scaring me, Scar. Please, just let me leave. I'm just gonna forget that you said anything.
YouTube, there's some
okay?
curse
Fine,
words.
go. Just see you next Friday for some more Netflix and scissor. Netflix and chill. Until then,
this video.
I didn't know what to do except pretend the whole encounter was a
Don't
weird
ban this
nightmare from all
video.
the crime documentaries. I couldn't
I'm
sleep
not
after
verified
that, and
yet.
it was so late in the night that it was basically early morning. So I just got up. There were 2 more days until I was set to meet Scarlett at her place again. I ghosted her the whole time, and it just felt easier to act like I didn't have a girlfriend until I could forget about it. I made sure to keep my doors and windows locked up from there on out. I passed out on Wednesday night, and I woke up to a bunch of texts from Scarlett. She was saying she had something to show me. She wanted to wait until I came over on Friday, but she just couldn't hold on to it. Then, she sent me a video I'll never unsee. It started with Scarlett putting our cat into a blender. He struggled against her, trying to get away, but she managed to shove him in it and put the lid on. He was meowing in distress like I'd never heard him. I was so confused as to what Scarlett was doing, but then she turned on the blender. I couldn't contain myself. Half of me wanted to shove Scarlett's face into the blender, but the other half could do nothing more but break down completely. I went to the police as soon as I could and showed them the video, then gave them Scarlett's address. They arrested her immediately, but it soon turned out that she was never lying about taking out a random man. The cat was just her warm-up, which meant our cat had already been deceased for days. Scarlett was sent to prison, and it's not expected that she'll ever come out. I've never gotten over what she did to our cat.
This
My
one
cat,
needs
and with a smile
1,000.
on her face. She's a monster, and every time I see a blender, a cat, someone that vaguely looks like her, or think about watching Netflix, everything comes rushing back to me, and that video just plays in my head. It's terrifying to think a Netflix show could inspire anyone to do such awful things. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a 25-year-old trans sadistic killer named Scarlett Blake, who was so confident she had gotten away with the perfect slaying that she couldn't help but boast about it. That led her to finally being caught and now facing a life sentence in prison. Blake filmed herself torturing a neighbor's cat and putting it into a blender. To make matters worse, Blake's rampage didn't just stop there. She was also accused of taking out a random stranger named Jorge Martin Moreno, having targeted him as he sat alone in the early hours of the morning in the park. Blake had smashed a vodka bottle over his head, then strangled him as he lay dazed, and pushed him into a river to drown. Blake then took trophy photos at the spot of where she took out the victim, and sent them to her partner Ashlyn Bell, a fellow trans woman. Police believe Blake would have gotten away with the crime had she not later had a bitter falling out with Bell, who then contacted detectives at the Ames Valley Police. It was only then, almost 2 years later after Jorge's death, that police finally learned of Blake's gruesome obsession with death, and how she had warmed up for her attack on him by making a 4-hour video of herself slaughtering a neighbor's cat. Blake had allegedly been inspired by the Netflix documentary Don't F with Cats, which charted the progress of Canadian misfit Luca Magnotta. From taking out pets and then eventually a human victim, Blake was then arrested and charged accordingly.
Oops.
I honestly thought I'd never get a date with a half-decent girl for the rest of my life. I might be fat as hell and losing my hair, so I held out for a hot chick for a long time, or even a soft six at least. But then one day, a miracle happened. I matched with this super hot girl named, well, I guess I should mention her name. I'll just call her Sarah. I always wanted to bang a Sarah. I didn't get my hopes up at first, as I figured it had to be another catfish. But the more we talked, the more I knew
Ba't
it
bumalik tong
wasn't.
isa na to?
Texts turned to phone
Ba't bumalik
calls
tong
and
isa na to?
FaceTime. That's when I was 100% sure this girl was real. Sarah wanted me to come over to her place for a Netflix and chill date. When she told me that, I just about had to change my underwear right then and there. But then, at last, came the catch. Not only did she want me to bring food and liquor for the night, but also a grocery list of narcotics. The only problem was I had no idea how to source half of that stuff. It took me a few days of asking around at dive bars and calling up old friends who I knew had gotten hooked on stuff in the past. But then, I finally had everything together. Sarah sent me her address, and I called up an Uber XL to make sure I got there safely. The entire way there, I was nervous as hell, not only because of the anticipation of getting with a hot chick, but
Why is
also
that?
because
There's
of the
nobody
bag of
here.
felonies I was in
What's
possession
that
of.
for?
I just kept telling myself it was going to be worth it. When I finally saw Sarah in person, she was even hotter than her pictures, and what she was wearing made her intentions clear. She invited me inside and told me to sit on the couch. Almost immediately, she curled up on me. She clearly knew her way around
Whoa.
very large men, and I figured this wasn't her first time using a fat incel like me to get her fix. After a few minutes, we decided on what to watch as we spooned. I handed her the bag of stuff, and she left me on the couch watching Netflix while she went into the bathroom to do all the stuff. After a few minutes, she
Huli
eventually
mo.
came out, but I had to do a double take. It was like she'd been replaced with some cracked out lookalike from off the street. Her face,
Okay.
and especially her eyes, looked so different, but the rest of her was still hot. I had to get in that and end my years-long drought. Sarah was stumbling around as she led me to her bedroom, as opposed to what I expected. Given how much smaller she was than me, she flopped down on the bed and told me to get on top of her. I didn't know what else to do but to listen to her, so I did what she requested and jumped on top of her with my arms and legs out. That's when things got freaky, and actually, I'll spare the details. I didn't last long at all. When I looked down at Sarah's face to apologize, I realized she was completely passed out. Her eyes were wide open as well as her mouth. I thought maybe it was just the combination of everything she took. But then blood started pouring out of her nose. I panicked, convinced that I had squished her in my excitement, crushed her ribcage, or even her windpipe. I called 911, hoping that someone could save her, but unfortunately they couldn't. The scene the cops arrived at looked pretty damning for me, so they arrested me. However, after some investigating, they let me go. They couldn't prove I put any of that stuff into her system. Sarah's family has remained suspicious of me. They think I'm a killer and took her out. I agree, I'm not the good guy in this situation, but I'm not a murderer. I'm just a typical desperate fat slob who tried to get his whistle wet. But now I'm traumatized by the thought of a Netflix and chill date, so I guess that's out the window for me. This story was inspired... This story was inspired by a disturbing incident that happened on December 11th of 2021.
A woman named Lauren Smith Fields invited a man she met on Bumble, 37-year-old engineer Matthew LaFountain, over for a Netflix and chill date. The two drank tequila and watched a movie before falling asleep. That's when bloody sheets and a male fluid-filled rubber was found at the scene. In the morning, LaFountain says he found an unresponsive Smith Fields with a bloody nose and called 911. Lauren Smith Fields' family believed that she was roofied and passed away at the hands of LaFountain. The medical examiner says Lauren
Hi,
passed
part
due
2,
to a
part
fatal
2.
combination of narcotics
Bye-bye.
and alcohol.